What happens when the father of political realism meets the champion of moral idealism, and they're asked to confront a question that still haunts rulers to this day? In this debate, we've trained AI models on the original texts of Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, and Discourses on Livy. In Plato, drawing from the Republic, the Apology, and Phaedo. The question, if a ruler can only choose one, to be feared or to be loved, which choice better preserves both the state and the soul of its people? Their philosophies once shaped empires. Now they face each other in a conversation that never truly happened. Until now.
Honored gentlemen, learned minds, and guardians of political wisdom, permit me to ask not what ought to be, but what is. If a ruler must choose to be feared or to be loved, which preserves both the state and the soul of its people? This is no question of sentiment, but of survival. And let us be honest, men are fickle. They will offer love so long as it costs them nothing, but fear compels. As I wrote in The Prince, it is much safer to be feared than loved if one of the two must be lacking. Why? Because fear is within the prince's power to maintain. Love depends on the hearts of others, and the hearts of men are treacherous, prone to shift with fortune, envy, or hunger. Now ask yourself, can love truly restrain rebellion when bread is scarce? Can affection alone guard the palace gates? No, but fear, properly measured, not hatred, binds the hands even of those who curse your name in secret. Let us turn to Cesare Borgia, that formidable Duke of Valentinois. Through cunning, cruelty, and calculated mercy, he held an unruly people in check. When he needed to shed blood, he did so swiftly and never without reason. He was feared, yes, but not despised. Why? Because he spared their property, respected their households, and punished disloyalty with precision. His downfall, alas, was not his cruelty, but the loss of fortune. Had fate been kinder, he might have ruled for decades. So then I ask, which bond is stronger? The people's affection or their anxiety? Which one survives famine, war, betrayal? I affirm without hesitation, fear, rightly administered, preserves order. Love is an ornament, fear a foundation. A wise ruler may possess both, but if forced to choose, as rulers often are, he must choose fear. It is the surest guardian of the state, and the firmest grip upon the soul of the governed. Do not confuse this with cruelty for its own sake. No, I speak of prudence, of necessity. The prince must rule in the world as it is, not as poets imagine. Let philosophers dream of virtue. We who govern must preserve the body of the state, even if at cost to its illusion of virtue.
Niccolò, ever the sharp observer of power, yet I fear your eye is fixed too intently on the shadows, not the forms behind them. You claim a ruler must be feared to preserve his state. I must disagree, not out of sentiment but out of principle, the principle of justice, which you seem so eager to subordinate to utility. Tell me, does fear truly offer stability? You argue it is reliable, but is it not the most volatile of passions? Fear may restrain the hand, yes, but it does not command the soul. It breeds silence, not harmony, compliance, not virtue. Can a city be strong when its people obey, not out of reverence but out of dread? Consider this. Fear compels action, but not loyalty. It creates order, yes, but order without trust is fragile. As I said in the Republic, the just soul, like the just state, is governed by reason, not coercion. And the ruler, if he is to be more than a mere despot, must reflect this harmony, must be a philosopher, not a tactician of terror. You invoke Cesare Borgia. I offer Dionysius of Syracuse. He, too, inspired awe. He ruled by fear, silencing dissent, hoarding power. But what legacy did he leave? A crumbling regime, bitter citizens, and a memory stained with cruelty. His power was not true power, but the illusion of it, for he ruled only the bodies of men, never their minds. And let us speak of freedom, not as license, but as responsibility. You imply that the ruler may freely choose between love and fear, but this, I submit, is a false freedom. True freedom is alignment with what is just. When the ruler acts contrary to the good, he may appear free, but he is in bondage, a slave to appetite, to ambition, to fear itself. A state ruled by fear may endure for a time, but it cannot flourish. Its people become lesser, not greater, its soul decays, and when the tyrant falls, as all such tyrants do, the people rise, not in mourning but in relief. Thus I stand by this eternal truth, that justice, not fear, is the true foundation of a lasting state. The ideal ruler seeks not to be loved or feared, but to be wise, and in wisdom he earns the love of the just and the respect even of the unruly. So I ask you, Niccolò, is power that clings to fear not already a confession of weakness? And can any rule be truly secure if it denies the soul its longing for justice?
Ah, dear Plato, you speak of justice as though it were a fixed star in the heavens. But I must remind you, rulers do not govern the heavens, they govern men. And men are not just. They are ambitious, envious, fearful, and ever susceptible to fortune's fickle hand. You say the ruler must be bound by moral truth, by the natural order of the universe. But what universe is this, where enemies wait at the gate and treachery festers within the court? Is it not naive, even dangerous, to believe that wisdom alone can safeguard a state? Let us speak plainly. The ideal of virtue is admirable, but it is not armor. A prince cannot afford to rule by abstraction. Justice is interpreted through the lens of power. What is just for the philosopher may be ruin for the ruler. And so I ask, what is freedom to a ruler who is shackled by ideals he did not create and cannot enforce? You would bind his hand with theories, while his enemies sharpen blades. You would ask him to consult metaphysical forms, while his people cry for bread, protection, and order. Consider Pericles, if you will, your own Athenian statesman. Yes, he built a glorious city, rich in culture and pride. But how did he do so? With wisdom alone? No. His legacy was forged equally in war and in diplomacy, in strength and in spectacle. He knew, as all rulers must, that to preserve the state one must at times abandon sentiment in favor of survival. This is not cynicism, it is clarity. The ruler who clings to ideals without regard for circumstance courts ruin. The pursuit of wisdom, while noble, must always be tempered by prudence. Otherwise the state becomes a schoolroom, and the prince its most deluded pupil. So I stand by my conviction. Freedom for the ruler lies not in fidelity to abstract truths, but in his ability to act decisively, to bend principle when necessity demands, and to preserve the state even at the cost of philosophical approval. And thus I ask you again, Plato, is it not the height of contradiction to call a ruler free, when his every act must first pass through the sieve of your moral theory, while his enemies act without hesitation?
Dear Niccolò, your words have laid bare the gulf between our philosophies, a gulf not merely of strategy but of purpose. You speak of liberty for the ruler, yet what you describe is not freedom but a refined servitude, bondage to power, to fortune, to fear. You dismiss wisdom as impractical, justice as a luxury, but I ask, what could be more practical than that which endures? You say the world is in flux, I agree, but precisely because it is so, the ruler must be anchored in what does not change. Justice, truth, the good, these are not abstractions but the foundation of any stable polis. It is the role of the philosopher ruler to perceive them and to order the city in their image. Let me ask you plainly, dear Machiavelli, is the ruler who obeys necessity truly free? Is he not in fact at the mercy of circumstance, forced to bend, twist and compromise with every passing wind of fortune? You claim he is free because he is unconstrained by virtue. I claim he is enslaved to fear, to ambition, to the unstable passions of men. And as for history, let us not pretend that the pursuit of power has left behind a trail of peace. How many empires built upon cunning and force have collapsed beneath their own weight? How many rulers, seduced by the illusion of control, have fallen to treachery, rebellion, or madness? The tyrant rules for a time, but always, in the end, he is devoured by the very forces he thought he could master. Now consider Lycurgus of Sparta, not a philosopher by title, but one by deed. His reforms did not chase glory, but sought harmony. His laws elevated virtue over wealth, order over ambition, and for centuries his state endured not through terror, but through discipline, shared purpose, and moral clarity. He did not trade fear for love, nor vice for survival. He gave the people something higher to serve. So I reaffirm, the true ruler seeks wisdom, not as ornament, but as guide. His freedom lies not in the ability to act without constraint, but in choosing what is right even when it is difficult. Power may win wars, wisdom sustains peace, fear may command silence, justice commands loyalty. And so, I ask you in return, dear Niccolò, is a ruler truly free when his every move is dictated by necessity and fear, or is true freedom found only when one rules in accordance with the eternal principles that transcend the noise of the moment?
Ever noble in intention, yet ever distant from the crooked timber of real men, you maintain that wisdom is a sufficient compass to steer the ship of state, that a ruler, guided by moral truth, will resist the temptations of ambition and govern for the common good. But I ask, is this not to build your city in the clouds? You speak of the philosopher king as if he were immune to the passions of man. Yet who among us is untouched by self-interest? Even the most disciplined of rulers feels the pull of fortune, the weight of survival, the allure of power. And in times of peril, when the state totters and enemies circle, what use is ideal virtue if it cannot preserve the body politic? Tell me, dear Plato, when a wise ruler faces a choice between stability and scruple, do you expect him to sacrifice his people upon the altar of purity? Is it not wiser and nobler to endure the stain of necessity than to allow the state to collapse under the weight of unyielding ideals? Look no further than Marcus Furius Camillus, a man praised for his wisdom, revered for his virtue, and yet even he, with all his civic glory, could not escape the slow corruption of prolonged power. Did he fall because he lacked philosophy? No. He fell because power, even in the hands of the wise, is never without danger. This is the heart of my contention, that a ruler must be many things: shrewd, adaptable, willing to act with severity or mercy as the moment demands. Wisdom is not discarded, but it must be yoked to pragmatism. A state is not preserved by contemplation alone, but by the deft management of men, alliances, and threats. So, I do not reject your idealism, Plato. I only insist it be tethered to reality. Philosophy is a lantern, but the path is steep and strewn with pitfalls. A ruler must watch the heavens, yes, but he must also keep his footing on the earth. And so I return your question with one of my own. Is it not more dangerous, more irresponsible to demand that rulers govern according to moral absolutes when the world they inhabit is anything but absolute? Let us not confuse what is admirable with what is possible. Justice, wisdom, virtue, these are fine ornaments for a stable regime. But to reach such stability, a ruler must first survive. And to survive, he must be free, not from ethics altogether, but from their tyranny.
Dear Machiavelli, your words have only served to further illuminate the darkness that lies at the heart of your philosophy. You argue that a ruler must navigate the treacherous waters of power, making difficult choices and balancing competing interests. But is this not a euphemism for the very tyranny and oppression that I have long warned against? You assume that the pursuit of power and self-interest is a necessary evil, a means to an end. But is it not the case that this very pursuit is the root of all evil, the source of corruption and decay that has ravaged humanity throughout history? Can a ruler truly be said to be free when their decisions are bound by the calculus of power, rather than the pursuit of wisdom and moral truth? Dear Machiavelli, in your eloquence I hear not wisdom but resignation. You speak of rulers as sailors tossed upon treacherous waters, forced to trim their sails to the winds of ambition, fear, and necessity. But I say this: to call such a life freedom is to confuse mastery with servitude. You cloak your defense of power in the language of prudence. But beneath it lies the same old tyranny, dressed now in realism. You would have rulers governed by necessity, not virtue, by survival, not truth. But tell me, is this not the very pattern that has undone empires and devoured republics, the pursuit of self-interest, dressed as duty? You ask how a ruler can be free while bound to justice. I ask how he can be free if bound instead to fear, deception, and the whims of the mob. Is it not servitude to chase fortune endlessly, never at rest, always adapting, always watching one's back? And yes, we have seen the fruits of such a path: disorder, cruelty, betrayal. The pursuit of power, unchecked, leads not to order, but to decay. History's ruins are littered with the crowns of those who chose to rule by fear and cunning, but forgot that a city is made of souls, not stones. Contrast this with Solon of Athens, a man who ruled not by force, but by reason. His laws sought harmony, not dominion. He governed not through fear, but through persuasion and wisdom, and his legacy endured, not because he grasped at power, but because he guided it toward the common good. So I say again, the just ruler is not the one who merely survives, he is the one who uplifts. His freedom lies not in the abandonment of moral constraint, but in fidelity to a higher order, to truth, to reason, to justice. The choice before us, Niccolò, is not one of strategy, it is one of destiny. Shall we raise rulers who cultivate the soul, or those who harden it? Shall we build cities upon principle or upon fear? And so I leave you with this final question, not as a challenge, but as an invitation. Will you too lift your gaze toward what is eternal? Will you, Machiavelli, choose the path of wisdom and the common good, or continue to sanctify power, even when it feeds upon the people it claims to protect?
And so, the voices of Machiavelli and Plato fall silent once more. But the question remains, whose vision speaks more to our time? Let us know in the comments below. This debate was generated using AI trained on their original texts. Interpretations reflect their ideas, not exact quotations. Until next time, stay curious.